Okay, so now we can start writing our final lab report. You've collected all your data, and the whole class has completed it. So now we're going to move on to the lab report. So the directions: complete the following report for the activity we conducted. You can use the handout with the guidelines to complete the lab report as reference, and I'm going to include that in your lab folder. So the title of the investigation: remember I had you highlight something much earlier when we were talking about student A and student B. Right here is going to be the perfect title. We're going to look at the effect of exercise on the rate of clothespin squeezing. Okay, that's going to be our perfect title. The question, I'll let you figure out what is the question we were trying to answer. Okay, and then the hypothesis. Make sure the hypothesis is stated as an if-then statement. So if we exercise, then the clothespin squeezing rate will increase. Or if we rested first, then the clothespin squeezing rate would increase. This you're going to, it doesn't matter which group you were in, you can kind of use, which student you agreed with, student A or student B, and create your hypothesis using that. Independent variable. What was the variable that we changed in this experiment? Okay, what was it that we manipulated or changed for the different groups? That's what you're writing for your independent variable. That's what the scientist changes. The dependent variable, that's your data. What did you measure or count? That's your data. And then the constant variables, what are some other things that you have to make sure we keep the same in this experiment? Then materials, what did you need to complete this experiment? And then the procedure. The procedure actually has to be pretty specific, and I would like you to number it. So you're going to write number 1 and then say, this is what we did. Number 2, this is what we had to do next. Don't just write it all in one step. Say, well, I rested and then squeezed and then rested and then squeezed and rested and squeezed. That's not a proper procedure. You want to write it with enough detail that someone who's never been in this class before can follow your directions and do the exact same experiment that you did with the same detail. So you have to be very specific. And your text box will expand as you type. So if you need more space, that's fine. You can type past the edge of this paper. And then we're going to move on to this next slide with our data collected. So the data table on the previous page should be completed. So this is the data table we're talking about, okay? Oops, here we go. Okay, so now you have your control group average that you're going to write from here. This is your control group average, and then group A average and group B average. That's where you're getting those numbers from, okay? Then you're going to make a histogram, another graph. It looks like a bar graph using these 3 values. Make sure you provide the title. Use the title from your previous page, and make sure you have an appropriate scale along the side. Make sure you're counting either by 5s or 10s or whatever you need, depending on how many squeezes people have. You want to make sure the lowest number you start with, it doesn't have to be 0. The lowest number can be, the lowest number that someone collected as their data. You could start at 100 if you need to with this first one. But make sure you spread out your scale so that you have enough, space to show your graph. And then you've got control group, group A and group B. And then you're gonna graph it. So you're gonna come up here and use your shapes again to shade in your bars. Make sure you include in the key, which bar is which color. And that's how you complete your graph.